This is another sign of the times, an analysis and a commentary. NATO strikes Pakistan. Pakistan has blocked vital supply routes for U.S.-led troops in Afghanistan and demanded Washington vacate a base used by American drones after coalition aircraft allegedly killed at least 24 Pakistani troops at 2 posts along a mountainous frontier that serves as a safe haven for militants. The incident Saturday was a major blow to American efforts to rebuild an already tattered alliance vital to winding down the 10-year-old Afghan war. Islamabad called the bloodshed in one of its tribal areas a grave infringement of the country's sovereignty, and it could make it that much more difficult for the U.S. to enlist Pakistan's help in pushing Afghan insurgents to engage in peace talks. A NATO spokesman said it was likely that coalition airstrikes caused Pakistani casualties, but an investigation was being conducted to determine the exact details. If confirmed, it would be the deadliest friendly fire incident by NATO against Pakistani troops since the Afghan war began a decade ago. The White House said senior U.S. civilian and military officials extended condolences to their Pakistani counterparts following the airstrike. The unidentified officials also expressed a desire to work with Pakistan to investigate the fatalities. Colonel Gary Kolb, spokesman for the NATO-led International Security Assistance Force in Kabul, said the aircraft were taking part in a strike that was a coordinated effort of ISAF, Pakistani military, and the Pakistani border authorities, NBC News has reported. He said they had responded to small arms fire, according to NBC News. Asked to confirm that it was retaliatory, he said yes. ISAF was still determining the exact circumstances. This has the highest priority to ensure that we get all the facts straight, Kolb said. A prolonged closure of Pakistan's 2 Afghan border crossings to NATO supplies could cause serious problems for the coalition. The United States, which is the largest member of the NATO force in Afghanistan, ships more than 30% of its non-lethal supplies through Pakistan. The coalition has alternative routes through Central Asia into northern Afghanistan, but they are costlier and less efficient. Pakistan temporarily closed one of its Afghan crossings to NATO supplies last year after U.S. helicopters accidentally killed 2 Pakistani soldiers. Suspected militants took advantage of the impasse to launch attacks against stranded or rerouted trucks carrying NATO supplies. The government reopened the border after about 10 days when the United States apologized. NATO said at the time the relatively short closure did not significantly affect its ability to keep its troops supplied, but the reported casualties are much greater this time, and the relationship between Pakistan and the U.S. has severely deteriorated over the last year, especially following the covert American raid that killed Osama bin Laden in a Pakistani garrison town in May. The Pakistanis were very angry that they weren't told of the operation beforehand. The government announced it closed its border crossings to NATO in a statement issued after an emergency meeting of the Cabinet's Defense Committee, chaired by the Pakistani Prime Minister, but it also said that within 15 days the U.S. must vacate a drone airbase, which is located in Pakistan. The U.S. uses the base to service drones that target al-Qaeda and Taliban militants in Pakistan's tribal region when they cannot return to their bases inside Afghanistan because of weather conditions or mechanical difficulty, said U.S. and Pakistani officials. The government also plans to review all diplomatic, military, and intelligence cooperation with the U.S. and other NATO forces, according to the statement issued after the Defense Committee meeting. Blatant and unacceptable. The Pakistani Army said that NATO helicopters and fighter jets carried out an unprovoked attack on 2 of its border posts in the Momand tribal area before dawn, killing at least 24 soldiers and wounding 13 others. The troops responded in self-defense with all available weapons, an Army statement said. The Pakistan Army Chief, General Kayani, condemned the attack, calling it a blatant and an unacceptable act, according to the statement. A spokesman for NATO forces, Brigadier General Karsten Jacobson, said Afghan and coalition troops were operating in the border area of eastern Afghanistan when a tactical situation prompted them to call in close air support. It is highly likely that the airstrikes caused Pakistani casualties, he told BBC television. More signs. The two posts that were attacked Saturday were located about 1,000 feet apart on a mountaintop and were set up recently to stop Pakistani Taliban militants holed up in Afghanistan from crossing the border and staging attacks, said local government and security officials. There was no militant activity in the area when the alleged NATO attack occurred, local officials said. Some of the soldiers were standing guard, while others were asleep, they said. Pakistan's Prime Minister summoned the U.S. Ambassador, Cameron Munter, to protest the alleged NATO strike, according to a Foreign Ministry statement. It said the attack was a grave infringement of Pakistan's territory and could have serious repercussions on Pakistan's cooperation with NATO. The ambassador said in a statement that he regretted any Pakistani deaths and promised to work closely with Islamabad to investigate the incident. In other words, this is a very serious incident, and there could easily be repercussions from this type of event. Perhaps the Afghanistan war has gone on just a little bit too long, and this could be the step-by-step process of the fulfillment of Revelation 18. Remember, there is a spiritual side or part to war also. This too is another sign of the times, the end times, transition days, which is a time of extraordinary happenings, changes, and events. Everything that must change quickly or rapidly, and for the better, because it's about what kind of world are we leaving to the future generations. Revelation chapter 18, verse 3. For all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the rulers and leaders of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies and luxuries. 4. And I heard another voice from heaven, saying, Come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and that ye receive not of her plagues. 5. For her sins have reached into heaven, and God has remembered her iniquities. 6. Reward her, even as she rewarded you, and double unto her, double according to her works. In the cup which she has filled, fill to her double. 7. How much she has glorified herself, and lived deliciously. So much torment and sorrow give her, for she says in her heart, I sit as a queen, and am no widow, and shall see no sorrow. 8. Therefore shall her plagues come in one day, death and mourning and famine, and she shall be utterly burned with fire, for strong is the Lord God who judges her. Yes, it's time for all these prophecies to be fulfilled. Everything is connected, and everything is numbered. It's also called fate or destiny. And all these are more signs